As much as I just said you're wrong about something, one of you just, I think, may have had the prediction of the year. The staff thinks it is Chalice of Supremacy worthy. I'll get to it in a second. First, we're going back to bold predictions, by the way, for those unfamiliar. And they're from August, and now we get to relive all of them in all of their glory. The first one is the kind I like, because it's the kind where I get to laugh. The first prediction was Caleb Williams' production will not match the hype he is getting. Narrator. Caleb Williams won the Heisman Trophy. So he did okay this year. I think probably the way the season ended with the Pac-12 championship game and then the bowl game may have sullied the picture you had in your head. It ain't his fault. He got hurt in the Pac-12 championship game, but they were scoring as many points as you should ever need to score outside of that conference title game. I mean, if they're scoring in the 40s, they're supposed to beat Tulane. I don't know how else to put it to you. So that's not a Caleb Williams thing. He was first in pass touchdowns and total touchdowns this year, a 66% completion percentage. So he was on fire all year. Defense. If Caleb Williams could trade a fourth of his statistics for some capable defense out there, they would be a college football playoff team automatically. Next up, this is a sad, sad state of affairs, this next prediction. The University of Florida, you know them as the Gators. Well, Nathan said Florida's going to win the SEC East. Bold prediction from Charlotte, North Carolina. Florida finished 5 games behind Georgia in the East, in the conference. They only play 8 conference games, for the record, and Florida finished 5 games behind Georgia. Florida lost to Georgia 42-20. Florida also lost at Vanderbilt for good measure. And so, Nathan, as kind as I could possibly be, this one was a whiff. We move on. This one was a hit. These next two, actually, so the next two are money. And the first one is this. Michigan and Georgia, who made the playoff, played each other in 2021. Joe said Michigan repeats, Georgia repeats. So they are going to go to the playoff again, is what he meant. I made this an 8 on the boldness scale. And frankly, when I look back on it, I think that's dumb. Because it was bold. Yeah, you're predicting half the playoff 4 months ahead of time. But was it really that bold? Was it an 8 on the boldness scale? Now, I had producer Jesse look up my notes that I have them keep. And he said, well, here was your concern. And come to find out, I had 2 concerns about this prediction. The first was, we've seen historically teams have letdowns coming off a title, and Georgia had won one for the first time in 900 years. And they lost all those guys to the draft. So who knows? Maybe they'll have a letdown year. I had to take that into account. And also, this was fresh off the Jim Harbaugh, Minnesota Viking flirtation, losing both coordinators thing. So maybe there's some residue there. Turns out neither were valid concerns. Well, neither panned out. Maybe they were valid, but they didn't pan out. So I guess that's why I made it an 8, but that was a hit. Okay, this next one, this is the prediction of the year, to me at least, because I put a 9 on this thing, and it hit comfortably. The prediction was as follows. Hugh said, Kansas will end with a better record than Nebraska, and Scott Frost is going to get fired. Kansas ended with a better record than Nebraska, and Scott Frost got fired. And he got fired about 3 or 4 weeks into the season. Nebraska's preseason over-under win total was 7.5. Kansas was 2.5. So a solid 5 games in the eyes of odds makers separated Nebraska and Kansas. And yet Greg walks out and says, I don't care. It's going to be Kansas winning more. Kansas goes 6-7. Nebraska goes 4-8. That was the best record for Kansas, by the way, since 2008. This was just a phenomenal piece of execution in the preseason. There is no preview magazine season on earth that will do as good as that prediction right there. Now, the last one did not technically hit, but I think it's going to hit very soon. The prediction was about Texas Tech. And Joey McGuire, the prediction was, will lead Texas Tech into the top 15. There'll be a top 15 program. Now, basically, we took that to mean at some point this year, there'll be a top 15 team. Didn't quite happen. They had a good year. They had a really good year, and I am pretty certain this is going to happen in the near future. Texas Tech is one of the quietest up-and-comers in the country right now. You're not paying a lot of attention to them. You should be paying attention to Texas Tech. They got a top 25 recruiting class. There is a ton of energy around the program. They love Joey McGuire. But even this past year, in a season where, yeah, technically they failed to be a top 15 team, well, that was an unrealistic expectation. They beat Houston, Texas, West Virginia, Kansas. They beat Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Iowa State. They did all that this past year. They were a very, very good team this past year. They will be a very formidable opponent to deal with moving forward. So even though the prediction itself didn't pan out, I thought that was a really good prediction.
Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure to leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.